Hey everyone, Craig here with Combat Performance and Endeavor Gym, and I want to bring you a video today to show you how I like to structure um, my own strength and conditioning, hybrid training, concurrent training, whatever you want to call it, a strength and conditioning program that includes uh, weightlifting, strength slash powerlifting, and conditioning. Full disclosure, this is a pretty bare bones skeleton and a program that I tried to, you know, cover as many bases as possible with. So without further ado, I want to get started with it. Let's see. So first things first, whenever we are getting into a program that focuses on multiple different disciplines, we have to choose what we care about, or sorry, we have to be explicit with what we care about. I care about a weightlifting total, right? I also want to improve my overall strength and I want to improve my aerobic capacity. So the goal for each of these, add more weight to weightlifting total, add more weight to strength exercises. Great. Kind of goes without saying. You could be more targeted with any one of these goals. So let's say that maybe you want to learn weightlifting and you got a PL powerlifting meet on the horizon that you want to jump into. So this could be like 5% total PR, and this could be literally snatch from the floor. That's a fine goal to have for this. Regardless, we have to be explicit with our goals so that we can set appropriate expectations and benchmarks throughout the program. Um, so I'm gonna undo those because this program is written with a client archetype that is similar to my goals. So how are we going to structure this program? I am going to use a uh we'll call it an undulating block length. So when we talk about programming, we will very often be like, hey, 4 week blocks, 6 week blocks, 8 week blocks, um, time to peak things, whatever. I, through my coaching experience, have not concluded, but I lean heavily towards a 4 week block for weightlifting and a 6 week block for strength. I think that it works for most people. And if it doesn't work perfectly, I can manipulate it so that it does. And then with our aerobic capacity and conditioning, the goal here, I'm going to say, is going from zero running training to running a 5K. So that'll be a 12-week uh, block, phase, cycle, whatever we want to call it, that gets us to be able to run a 5K. So keep those items in mind as I go through this program and how you should do it or how you could structure it. Um, this is not for someone who is a super experienced conditioning athlete. This is for the strength or powerlifting or weightlifting athlete who maybe wants to dip their toes into more hybrid-ish training and introduce some of the cardio for the first time in a while or whatever. So here is the program that we're sort of working with here, right? Where, let's see if I can minimize that. Cool. Where again, weightlifting is going to be on 4 week blocks here. So we've got a block of triples, got a block of doubles right here. Everything is ramping in intensity using percentage based approach. I do not find that auto regulating weightlifting movements is a great idea because if you flush a snatch perfectly, it's going to feel like a 6 RPE. Whereas if you have to fight for it, it might feel like a 7 or 8 RP, and that can vary rep to rep within a time period of 30 seconds even. So we don't do much auto regulation with weightlifting stuff, just kind of accumulate volume in the 70 to 80% range. And as we get into the third block of singles, we're gonna shift our focus from strengthening our weightlifting to tapering and peaking our weightlifting. So that last block will be singles here. Notice volume doesn't really change too much, right? So we start at about 9 reps, go to 12, go to 15. This is basically a standard onboard or on ramp. We can call it introductory, whatever we want to call it. I don't call it an intro block. I just, you know, titrate volume up to where I want it to be, which is roughly around 15 reps. And then at that percentage range of 70 to 80%. And from there, I volume kind of stays excuse me, volume kind of stays stagnant around 12 reps until that week 8, where this percentage is 80 to 85% is pretty high. So I'll give the athlete the option to only do 4 sets if they're feeling a little beat up. If they feel really good, we'll go with the 6 sets and bump the intensity a little bit. Right into that, we're gonna go to singles, and this will be like our quote unquote taper slash peak for testing out at the end of this program. And you'll notice with cleans, we did the exact same thing. Not getting fancy with different rep ranges or craziness between snatches and cleans, mainly because this is a program that needs to be able to include all of the other things that we care about as laid out in our structure here. So volume relatively is kind of low in the weight lifts, but I do believe that it's, hovering right above minimum effective dose, and I'm not going to get fancy or cute with the rep ranges and stuff here, just what works. Towards our second snatch exposure is going to be OTMs or EMOMs, whatever we want to call them. And basically, this is where we are practicing singles at lower intensities, ramping up over the course of the entire 12 weeks to a max out sesh. So for that first 4-week blocks, 6, 8, 10, 8 sets, a standard like sort of wave approach to volume here, where we're bumping volume 2.5% each week until we get to that second block where we're going to undulate the intensities a little bit more. We'll get some practice at weights that are a little bit more manageable, and then ramp up over each session to harder and harder, and then ramp up week to week into harder and harder as well. So you're going to finish that second block, hopefully hitting a manageable, almost 90-ish% single that, my goal as a coach, I want this to be clean and crisp and set you up for a nice final block where we ramp into our testing. And you'll notice pretty significant volume drop here from second block to third block, where we're really, again, trying to taper and peak into that heavy 1 rep. We're not going to get a whole ton of overreaching, not a ton of super compensation, because, again, the volume given through the strength stuff and the conditioning will just make it so that you simply, this is where we have to play the give and take in the compromise game. But even with that said, I think this acts as a nice peak where you should notice some improvements, to your, if not to your overall max, you should, if you're not setting massive PRs, you should at least be hanging around where you were at before you started introducing the different disciplines in. So hope that makes sense. Clean and jerk. Again, this is not super fancy, but it is where I'll deviate from my normal snatch programming. We're gonna go 3 blocks here, where each block has its own set single that we're gonna take each fourth session or whatever. So the whole first block is going to be a single at 85%, followed by drop sets between 70 and 78%. Whole second block, same structure with 90%, followed by 78 to 80% drop sets, or sorry, 75 to 83% drop sets, my bad. And then that last block again acts as more of our peaking slash tapering. Again, volume a little bit lower than snatches. And the reason for that is the clean and jerk is not just 1 lift, it's 2 lifts combined into one. So you will accumulate acute fatigue by doing too many reps or sets at intensities that match snatches, for example, which is why you'll notice intensity differences between the snatch and clean and jerk as well. So moving into our strength stuff, like I mentioned before in this outline, I'm going with a 6-week block schedule here. And for my strength exercises, I chose back squats, push presses, and deadlifts. We're going to call front squats a strength exercise, but I'm going to touch on how that's a little bit different afterwards. You're more than welcome to swap this push press with a strict press, a barbell bench press, whatever it is. I chose a push press because, again, as outlined in my goals, I care about weightlifting total more than a hypothetical powerlifting total. If you are the opposite and you compete in powerlifting, we can make this a bench press, and we can even take an upper push accessory and make it a secondary bench. So close grip. Again, we can do strict presses, incline presses, whatever we want here, and turn that also into a strength exercise. But for me and my purposes, I'm going to leave this as push press. Now, going into my strength progression, the first 2 weeks are sort of an on ramp for where we're going to be volume wise and intensity wise to start. Uh, we are going to get into auto regulation, but not from the outset. And the biggest reason for that is I don't want this number to be uh, artificially high, quote unquote. And basically, what I'm worried about here is I don't want to set like a 1 set of 5 and an 8 RP precedent or standard here that can't really be matched throughout the rest of the program because you haven't accumulated the actual fatigue from doing a program like this before. So again, I'm gonna call it a quote unquote on ramp, and we'll do 3 sets of 5, 70%, should be super manageable. Bump to 4 sets of 5 at 70 to 75%. Again, goal is manageable here. And then we're gonna start with our first auto regulation. So after 2 weeks of the program, I believe that you will be well adjusted enough to be able to have actually reliable auto regulated sets. Mostly that's a me taking care of the mental, so to speak. But I actually believe that there's probably a performance benefit to this as well. So anyway, we're gonna start week 3 of our 6-week strength block with a set of 5 and an RPE of 8. We're gonna do 3 drop sets, so volume matched, but intensity will now be shifting. Following that, we're gonna base our last week plus 5 to 10 pounds or kilo progression off of this drop set. So if I hit 100 kilos here, I'm gonna do 90 kilo drop sets, 95 kilo for the week 4, maybe 100 kilos for week 5 for all 4 sets. If I can nail that, we know that we're gonna improve our set of 5 strength. So week 6 comes and we're gonna test out of the 5s with another 8 to 9 RP set. And this will also act as a mini deload for squats. So we're gonna drop a set off, drop intensity by 20% for our drop sets, which again should be super manageable before moving into our second 6-week block of threes. Now, for this, we're not going to have the same on ramp, but I'm going to bring another small intensity deload, not necessarily a volume deload, but an intensity deload, or we can call it like a intro week, but it's not a for squats. So 6 RP, we're going to keep the same weight, 4 straight sets at whatever weight we choose for our 6 RP. Should be manageable. By the end of these sets, they should start to creep towards getting difficult, but nothing, maximal yet. After that, we're going to go and follow a very similar progression that we did for week 3 and do a set of 3 and an 8 RPE, 10% load drop. Again, we are basing our weekly progressions of 5 to 10 kilos off of this drop set. So again, come week 11, we are testing out of our threes with a heavy triple, another 20% load drop, another drop a set of volume off so that it acts as that deloadish again. And then the last week, 3 sets of 3 at 90% of whatever we hit for this 8 RP, 8 to 9 RP triple, which should feel good. It should be difficult, but it should feel good. And this is actually part of our taper week. So hopefully this potentiates a big weightlifting total at the end. And again, we're going to use that same strength layout for push presses or bench press if you choose, as well as deadlifts here. Now, I will say at the end of deadlifts, I'm more than happy if you scrap this last session and make it a max out sesh. where you just PR deadlifts. I'm going to leave it here where it is because, again, we have another goal here that we haven't talked about yet, right? Improve aerobic capacity, 0 to 5K. So we're going to get into our running program, where my goal here is to be as easily digestible as possible, to not interfere with our primary goals of weightlifting and being a bigger and stronger athlete. But if we want to improve our aerobic capacity, if we want to get ourselves into more conditioning training, more running, a 0 to 5K is an easy way to do it. Shouldn't be very intrusive on the rest of your training, and it should be fun too. So what I chose to do is, over the first 4 weeks, this is again 12-week block, where from week 1 to week 12, on our first running day, we are ramping running volume up, and then we are ramping total running volume, from up to about 36 to 4,000 meters, and then dropping it off and going down all the way to 2,000. So I know that was kind of weird. The first few weeks, again, are a ramp up, and onboarding, an intro, whatever you want to call it, a way to accumulate volume until we get to a spot roughly around week 3 and 4 where we can start to level off total volume over the course of the week. But on this first day, it's going to descend down as we ramp the second day all the way up. So the way that I chose to do it was basically say, hey, we're going to do a 5K on last day of this cycle. I want to reverse engineer this entire running program so that we taper right into it, or peak right into it. So we're averaging roughly 7,000 meters per week from week, I believe, 4 to 12. Week 1 through 3 is accumulating mileage over the course of those weeks to hit 7,000 without bringing that massive shock to the overall body, right? Like, we can't just start at 7,000 meters. We got to start at in a manageable way. So 4 500-meter intervals shouldn't be too crazy, easily recoverable. And then 6 250s on that second day, again, should be manageable, shouldn't be too difficult. And then we ramp up so let's say we started here at 2,000 plus about 1,500, that's 3,500 for the first week. Second week, we're at 2,000 plus 1,500 again, so another 3,500. And then, oh, I'm sorry, this is 3,000. So this is 3 plus 2, that's 5,000. So from 3,500 to 5,000, and then 2,500, and this is going to be 5,500 meters. And you can see that it just kind of climbs up until we get to that spot where we can start leveling off. This is 36 plus 3, so that's 6,600. 3,000 plus 3,000, that's 6,000. Or sorry, this is 700. This is 750. 7,500. Jesus. And now we're kind of at that spot. So week 5, maybe it is. And then you can see these mileage, these intervals will descend from 750, 500, and these mileages or meterages will increase. Thousands, 3 1250s, 215s, 1 3, 135, 1 4, and it culminates in that 5,000 meter slash 5K run. So nothing too wild, but this is how we would structure training for those 3. And I really want the main point of this to be that you can write a program that is that structures different disciplines in different time constraints, for example. So like I said, 4-week block for weightlifting, 6-week block for strength, 12-week for running. Pretty linear for most of them. So you can see like it linear goes up, take a step back, linear up again. Whereas the 12-week, it's just linear all the way up. Um, Nothing too wild, but I do, like I said, the biggest point of this is don't be afraid to have three concurrent or separate training progressions that are all happening at one time in your overall program. It does take some forethought. It does require a little bit of critical thinking, but when you put it together, it really is pretty simple. And now that we have those three quote unquote disciplines laid out, we can start to plug in some accessory things, some like tertiary goals, right? Getting bigger and stronger, taking care of our joints, whatever it may be. You could throw different, you could like breathing drills. I don't care what you do. You could, the volume here is enough that you will get stronger, you will get better at what you're doing. And then the rest is kind of like optimizing based on what you care about more. So for me, I'm throwing in accessory stuff. I want to get big legs. So I've got a lower accessory here, walking lunges, split squats, hack squats, leg presses, whatever you want to do. 8 to 12 reps for first block, 6 to 10 second block, 4 to 8 third block, nothing crazy, very linear approach. And we're going to carry that accessory structure for upper back again, whatever you value. It could be pull-ups, chest supported rows, single arm rows, lat pull downs that are across your body with a cable. I don't care. Whatever you want to do, you can do it, and it'll function properly in that slot. You could add more accessory days to day 2 or day 4, depending on how much you how well you tolerate the extra conditioning, or how strong you are, or if you feel like you're getting everything you want out of the program already, you don't need to. Time constraints again, present an example. So we could add another upper back session here, which is probably where I would fit it in, because upper back is limited on this program. So maybe you have another upper back accessory on day 4, maybe even day 3. We can push this upper push accessory to day 4 after clean and jerks, whatever it may be. That's not the real point of this video, but you can see how easily you can kind of puzzle piece this all together to really fit. The one thing I didn't cover was front squats here. Uh, we have a 1 time a week frequency on our strength exercises, except for squats. And truthfully, this isn't even a squat strength exercise for me. You could turn it into one, pause squats, high bar squats, SSB squats, whatever you need as like a secondary squat day. I chose to keep this in as an accessory for my clean and jerk and as a way to potentiate that clean and jerk session on day 4. So 3 sets of 3, 80%. That shouldn't be crazy, right? But it's a percentage of clean 1RM. So it's even less crazy than it comes across. This should be super manageable. And again, as a way to act as an accessory for my clean and jerk and my snatches. As we get later on in this program, so the first 4-week block is 3 sets of 3 at linear bump in intensity. The second block is also sets of 3 and singles. So we're going to start at week 6, making the swap to singles at 95%, 98%, 100%. 100% of your clean for 5 singles really shouldn't be too much to front squat. And then as we get heavier than that, reps are going to drop, right? On this last day, you could test out of front squats. I like to just hit 110%. That way I feel really strong for that clean max out session. So I hope this was informative for everyone. I hope that uh, this isn't perceived as like, oh, Craig wrote a program for us, and more so as a way to um, feel confident in taking ownership and autonomy over your training and your ability to program multiple disciplines at one time and how you might want to conceptualize that. Any questions, be happy to answer them in the comments. And if these videos do well, I can't wait to make more of them. Thanks a lot.